So you've just been hit with an IRS letter and you have no idea what's the first step that you need to do in order to be able to respond to this correspondence related to additional documentation that they're asking you to supply for any of the tax deductions or the credits that you've claimed on your tax returns. Well, in this video, I want to walk you through specifically what you need to ensure that you begin to gather and pull together in terms of receipts, in terms of bills, in terms of supporting documentation that will suffice and support the claims that you put on your return as long as you have the documentation. So if you're ready, let's go.
The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Melonē.
Hi, everyone. It's Sophia Melonē, the Debt Demolisher, here to bring you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you manage your financial baggage the right way. What an honor and privilege it is to be before you all for yet another episode drop on the Debt Demolisher TV. And in today's episode, I want to talk to you guys about how to prepare for a tax audit. I know it may be scary to see that letter from the IRS in your hand and you're like, what am I supposed to do? When the IRS sends you a letter and lets you know that they are auditing your return, what they're going to do is basically in that letter ask you to supply supporting documentation for the business claims that you filed, for the income that you reported, for the credits that you also claimed, as well as the deductions that you took for that particular tax return period. So ideally, since you have already actually prepared and filed your tax returns, the IRS is presuming that since you put these numbers or since you've provided these numbers to someone to include inside of your tax return, that you have the support and documentation for it. So their understanding and their rationale is it should not take you something very astronomical or something very convoluted to be able to create something new, because you should already have the numbers to back what it was that you claimed and what you included inside of your tax returns. So the first thing that I want to do is just get you acclimated with the letter in and of itself, and just telling you right now not to be weary. Don't be afraid. So especially if you know that the items that you've claimed, that the things that were inside of your tax return is something that you provided documentation to your tax preparer in order for them to include inside of your tax returns, then you already have that information. The only thing that they need is for you to supply copies of that information to them. And when you get that letter, they're going to give you clear instructions on how to remit it, what to provide, and what they're looking for. 9 times out of 10, the IRS is looking for receipts to back up the numbers specifically for credits and deductions that you take to reduce your income, which ultimately reduces your tax liability. So what they're looking for is documentation to suffice for those receipts. Now, if you have business deductions that you've claimed, it's going to be very important that you have a summary of receipts. You're able to organize them by date. You're able to explain what the expense was for. And this is where your bookkeeping is really going to come into play, because if you have bookkeeping, it should be tracking all of your expenses in the first place. And you should be able to identify what that transaction was for. And if you have categories, if you have buckets inside of your bookkeeping system, it'll be easy for you to explain what the expense was for. But they're going to want to see a full listing dated to support the number that is inside of your tax return. So you have to ensure that whatever you're including in your returns are something that you will be able to support, is something that you'll be able to substantiate, and you'll be able to back it up so that you can provide those receipts to them. So what are some of the things that they're going to ask you for? Outside of receipts, which I just mentioned, they're going to more than likely ask you for bills to substantiate those vendors or those payments that you had to make. They may even require or request that you provide legal documents. So if you have any specific things related to maybe a divorce or any other pertinent legal documentation, they may want to see that. If there's any loan agreements that you've agreed to, they may want to see that. If you have any canceled checks to support maybe any charitable contributions or donations that you made, they're going to want to see that. We're living in this day and age now where there aren't really too many canceled checks because a lot of us make e-payments. So having your bank statements with your name on it or with your business name on it is going to be something very important to back that up. The key when it comes to your expenses is you have to be able to justify, and I'm going back to the receipts because you have to be able to justify what that expense was for. And when you go and you outline all of your receipts and you're pulling your documentation, you can put a memo or a note or something along those lines and make a note of what that expense was for if you have your physical receipts. Some things may be self-explanatory, but sometimes you may want to categorize it and really explain what it's for. It's best to organize it by date because that'll make it easier for the reviewer on the other side. And whoever is assigned as the tax auditor of your return, the more organized you are, the better it'll work out in your favor. Sometimes you could be even more organized where you find a whole lot more things that you probably should have claimed that you didn't claim because maybe you didn't have it together at the time that you gave it to your tax preparer. So one of the things that will benefit you the most is organization, having your receipts together, understanding what the expense was for, and being able to justify it for the industry that you're working in. If there were any mileage claims, you have to be able to have receipt logs and something to suffice where you were going, how much the mileage was, and what it was attributable to, because that is what's going to help you to be able to really clearly indicate the mileage and your rates that you're taking for those things so that you can be able to deduct it. If you've done a lot of travel, you want to make sure that you have copies of your tickets, your actual airline tickets that you've taken or that you've had to incur during that tax year that's under audit. Having copies of those, being able to justify your travel, what the travel was for. It has to be for business related needs. Of course, if this is related to a business return that was audited, you have to ensure that you have that supporting documentation for that. Another thing is any medical or dental expenses. This is going to be more so for those who have Schedule A's. You want to ensure that you have maybe the medical savings account statements that you receive from your medical provider or from your healthcare provider, the benefits reports and the paperwork that you get in the mail related to that, that shows what the member responsibility is and what you've had to pay, any of those receipts, those hard copy receipts that you've had to pay. All of that stuff ties into support for your medical expenses. Another Schedule A item is theft and losses. So you are able to deduct a portion of your casualty and theft losses. Some of these is including gambling winnings, but gambling losses, but that's up to the extent of the winnings that you receive. So it's not really something that you'll be able to deduct. You're only able to offset what you've spent against the winnings. So it'll kind of mesh out and wash out none the least. Other items are your employment documentation, proof of where you work, the type of income that you receive. They're going to want to see all of these types of support, especially if you receive income that's not through another means whereby it's reported by another entity, because sometimes you may have income that you receive on the side. You're going to have your ledgers for that to support the income that has been reported. So the key thing that I want to share with you all today when it comes to preparing for a tax audit is organizing your receipts, making a note of what it was for. I know a lot of us may not keep the receipts. You may not keep your physical receipts. So this is one of the reasons why I leverage a receipt scanning app that can maintain and house it for me. So that way, all I have to do, if I have a situation like this, I just print out the copy of the receipt, because that way I'll always have it. One thing too that I want to remind you, never send your original documents. When you are responding to an audit request, send copies. Do not send the originals, because once you send the originals, they are not sending it back to you. So you have to make copies and also attach a copy of the letter that you're responding to, so that way they can see the notice number, and then that way they can see that the package that you're providing, what it's supposed to support, so the person who has your audit can be able to tie that to the case number that's been assigned for that particular tax year. One of the things too that I want to caution you on, if you've been audited and they find errors in your return, you may want to brace yourself, because if they find errors, they can definitely go back to subsequent years and audit those years, because more than likely they're going to say, if you weren't able to substantiate this year, more than likely your prior year returns are incorrect as well. So if that's the case, you may want to go ahead and get yourself together and start looking at your data, pulling your support, getting all of your information together to make sure that what you had on those prior year tax returns can be substantiated against the support that you have. And then also you may want to put yourself on the era of citing of caution, whereby you're looking out for future years, because if you've been flagged for audit in 1 year and they found discrepancies, they can go back and then they could also flag you for future filings. So keep that into consideration. Don't be afraid. The key thing is to get organized. If you are not organized, you need to find someone to help you get organized, because the only way that's going to keep you from getting in a space where you are disallowed credits or your disallowed expenses that you've claimed is because you lack organization. And my job and my responsibility is to help you do that, which is why I'm sharing these tips to help you get that organization together. You could always outsource it for yourself if you want somebody to help keep you organized and keep your bookkeeping together and making sure that all of your support and all of your business transactions are audit ready. You want to hire somebody to do that. I do offer those services. So if you're interested in that, you can let me know, but that service capability is limited. It is limited, but I am offering that to some of my clients. So if that's something that you're interested in, please let me know in the comments, or you can just go to sophiamelonē.com/connect and submit your inquiry, and then I will get back to you surely and truthfully. So remember, your financial prosperity awaits you, and so does your financial sanity. You already know what I'm going to tell you to do, and that's what? Get to work. All right. Bye.
The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Melonē. The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Melonē. The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia